All right, welcome back. Welcome to episode number 20 something. I'm trying not to keep track, but we're starting to scratch our way to the 30th episode. They all said this couldn't be done. They all said it'll never work. It'll never last. Look, honestly, I don't know who they are, but that's what they were thinking. And I don't have to prove that to anybody. But anyway, here we are. What a day. What an occasion. I have been looking forward to this for, well, let's just say months. Here we are, middle of February, mid to late February, and the Dan Time Podcast. Let me go ahead and I'm all over the place today. I'm your host, Dan McArdle. You're listening to the Dan Time Podcast. For those of you who have been listening for a while or you jumped on a few weeks ago and you're like, I kind of like where this thing is going. And today you might be thinking, what is this? He's all over the place. This is a mess. Well, this is what we do this is what I do when I bring back somebody like today's guest, Jim Powell. Before I get any further, everyone knows you've pulled up the show notes or you see it, you're driving and you see who the guest is. Yes, Jim Powell, the one and only. Jimmy, he is back today after a near 5-month absence. Sounds like a long time, but let's remember he helped me launch this podcast, this project, Jim, not a Dan, but a Jim, and there's a story behind that. Go back and listen to that episode if you're not familiar. I brought him right back about 7 weeks later, or after the 7th episode, for a bonus episode. Don't know why I needed him that quickly. I think I just, I felt some magic. I always feel a comfort level with this man, this friend of mine. Then the show's been moving along, and there's been no reason to go back to that well until today. And we'll get into the reasons why, how, and why it's necessary. But, Jim, first of all, let me just ask you, how about this weather we're having? How about this weather? Not how you doing, not how's everything been the past 5 months. Let's talk about this frickin' weather.
I mean, I'll get right to the weather, but first of all, I don't know if you can hear blushing through the phone, but I always these glowing intros that I get. It's just such an uplift. It's always a pleasure to get the call, to the bullpen to be your, I wouldn't say closer, but middle relief guy when you need somebody to get you through to those later innings. And so, just happy to be here. And the weather is cold. It's gray, but I don't know if you're speaking about today's weather because today is cold, but for about the past week, it's been unseasonably warm, it's felt like. So the weather has been, Alabama-ish, I would say. What's it like down there in the Panhandle?
It's cold, it's misty, it's rainy, but I was going to say, no matter where you are, the weather is always an important piece of
yes, it is a piece. It is very important. Weather is important. If we didn't have weather, we might live on Mars or something like that, and that would be very inconvenient for everybody.
Well, I'll just say this, Jim.
I don't think there's atmosphere there, so we'd be in trouble. So weather is important.
Whether you like it or not.
Oh, man.
The reason I brought that up, and it's a very important question, how about this weather we're having in that sequence? And because we're men of a certain age, and that's how we open discussions. We run into someone, we go to an event or a work gathering or lunch, and you bump into someone, you're putting your plate together from the little nukes line or whatever, the hot plate. You've been to those things, right? You've worked for companies or belong to club. And hey, how you doing? How you doing, Jim? Wow, how about this? How about this weather we're having? First of all, we don't have weather How about this weather we're experiencing?
Uh-huh.
I'd like to move things along
Absolutely.
very quickly here because that just did not land the way I wanted it to. But uh, Jim,
Good effort, though. I enjoyed it.
I just want to say thanks for being here. Thanks for answering the call. Like you said, you're like that guy, the middle reliever, been sitting in the bullpen. You've been traveling with the team for a few weeks now, and you haven't pitched in 9 days. Let's just say proportionally to when you've appeared last
Hmm.
in this podcast, uh, and then Skip calls for you. What was it like when you got the call earlier this week?
Oh, just jubilation, when when the phone rings. First of all, you and your brother and one other friend of ours, Grant, are about the only people who actually still use the telephone feature on their cell phones. So anytime the phone rings, I just get giddy, and you probably don't hear it in my voice because I try so hard to stifle it. But I just love. I'm one of this, I love to hear myself talk. So, but really, I just love talking to you. So I was excited and always happy to do it. And I've just loved, listening to your podcast, Dan Time. Speaking of your brother Travis, it's good to know that I've been on here, multiple times and he still hasn't made it on. So, if I could ever get on with him, that would be the holy grail. If he'll come on, I'll come on with him since he's so scared to do it by himself.
Well,
I think that's the shining star that you should keep shooting for.
well, I do have an update on that end. So, and I haven't mentioned it. There's been no reason to the past several weeks, but Travis and I we've been in talks. I think I've gotten
Hmm.
him to. I mean, he was way off. He was that wall was up. There was no breaking through. He said, "Thanks, I appreciate it. I enjoy listening to the episode with Robert, the Halloween special." Uh,
Oh, great
I just,
episode, yeah.
yeah, he just didn't feel a need to do it. But we've come a long way in our discussions. So I don't know when he's going to appear, but it is now. At one time, it was doubtful, then questionable.
Oh, we're up to questionable.
I would move it to now probable
Probable.
that my younger brother Travis will make an appearance.
Well,
But
I'm looking forward to that. And until then, I'm always here for you. So you just call me anytime.
but the purpose of this podcast, this is not a screw around venture. This is not me just, hey, let's bring on all my old buddies, my brothers, my uncle, and let's just shoot the breeze with no outline or anything. That is not what I'm trying to do here. But today we really have no structure to this episode, and I got to say, it's kind of a welcome relief. Gone a few weeks here. I'm very happy with the guests that I put forward. I think they've enjoyed being on the show. I hope so. But every once in a while, and I've had a lot of changes here in the past couple weeks. I'm not going to talk about what I've had going on, but this kind of makes sense right now, and luckily you were willing to do it. Let me just say, Jim, I was listening. I don't know if you ever listened to Fly on the Wall, the podcast with David Spade and Dana Carvey.
Oh, I've never listened to it, but I have the retrospective on Phil Hartman recorded, but I just haven't listened to it.
Check that one out. I think Danny DeVito is either the current episode or one or two back. Uh, Obviously, Danny DeVito is someone that I would love to have on this show.
It's a
DeVito,
big Dan right there. That's a Dan to get. Yeah.
absolutely. Now they were talking about he's appeared 6 times on SNL. There's the famous 5-time club, but
Hmm.
DeVito, I didn't realize that has hosted the show 6 times. So similarly, it's a prestigious. Um,
Absolutely. You can't even say it without chuckling. It is prestigious, Dan.
this is your
I'm prestiged. I'm prestiged is
this
what I'm, like I said, honored and prestiged to be the first three-timer on on the Dan Time podcast.
now.
And my name's Jim. So, but that's okay. 3 letters, one syllable. I mean, works.
Now, Jim, there is a caveat. So
Uh,
this will be an official episode. When I brought you back the second time, I thought this cannot be episode number 8. He was just here. He just helped. He was the first one. Let's just make this fun. I think we got together to send some good mojo to the Cubs. They were making a playoff
Mm-hmm.
run at the time. This was September, end of September 2023. So I built it as a bonus episode. So, let's be honest here. It's kind of like appearance number 2.5. I really don't know what. Yeah, what's your second official appearance? And let's just say you drew a walk. Um, your
So
second time
you're
up.
gonna pull a full. You're gonna pull official because it was a bonus. It doesn't count. It doesn't count because it
Well,
was a bonus. So
let's just the bonus episode was no official at bat. You were there, you reached base, but it wasn't a clean hit.
Okay. Well, you have your record book. I have mine. I'm good. This is my third appearance, and I'm sticking to it. No doubt.
I might put that out there as how you can do surveys on X and just
Hmm.
sit back and wait for the crickets because I think the last time I put a survey out there,
I voted.
you voted, a couple other people pretty close to the vest voted, and then I think I might be threw in a vote too just to make it look like we.
You got it to a grand total of 4 or 5.
Yeah. But maybe we'll put a question out there. Is this Jim's third appearance, or is this really his second
Wow.
official?
I'll be stuffing that ballot box. I'll be getting everybody I know to vote. Yeah, yay in the yay category.
Jim,
Not the nay.
I have a lot of stuff I want to get to today with you. First of all, it is an election year, and I know what people are thinking. Oh my gosh, he's gone this long. Now we're going to hear the Trump stuff, the Biden stuff. No, you're not. No, you're not. It's an election year, and it just got me thinking. I got a couple questions here, Jim. Well, first of all, I was thinking this week about some of my favorite fictional politicians in movies, and I just scratched out a few. You might remember one that's not on this list. My favorite of all time, and feel free to laugh at my expense here, I gotta
Mhm.
go. I gotta go with Al Donnelly from Black Sheep, running for governor. But I also scratched out President James Marshall, Air Force One. That might be the
Good
tops
one.
of most
Yeah.
people's list. Harrison Ford,
Get off my plane.
Tom
Sorry, that was
Kirkman, Kiefer Sutherland's Tom Kirkman from Designated Survivor, Jed
Oh, who
Bartlett.
could forget that one? Let me comment on these. Kiefer Sutherland, who and what?
Well, now this wasn't a feature film, but it's on Netflix. I think it started on network TV. Designated Survivor. I used to watch this show
Hmm.
with Natalie.
And Kiefer Sutherland was the president?
Jim, we've messaged about this. I'm pretty sure you've never heard of Designated Survivor.
Yes, I've heard of Designated Survivor. I think you're the only person in America who watched it. I just like giving you grief about it. Your list was on fire until that.
All right, so
So
Al
please proceed.
Donnelly's the governor. I don't have another governor on the list, but do you have a favorite movie portrayal of a president, a governor, maybe a mayor?
Ooh, remember the movie Dave with Kevin Kline where he's a body double? Was he the body double for the president, or was he the
Uh-huh.
president? That was a good one. Little known, he was a body double, Dustin Hoffman, I think, in a movie called Moon Over Parador for a small Latin American country who had a dictator who they needed a stand-in for. And they found out this schlub from America, who played by Dustin Hoffman, was a dead ringer for him. So that's my designated survivor pick that obviously nobody has ever heard of or remembers. Man, Air Force One, Harrison, I don't remember his name in the movie, but you just said it. That's a great one. Oh, best ever, Bill Paxton, Independence Day.
There you go.
Bill Pullman. Bill Pullman, Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
Number one right there.
I think what does it for me with Al Donnelly is, well, Chris Farley's character in that movie. But
It's his best movie, I think. Yeah.
have you seen a movie that represents a campaign or a candidate's top surrogate, and the way that Farley behaves, and the lengths he goes to, and kind of flops and fumbles doing it, trying to get his brother elected. It's the best.
No, it is the best.
Now I asked this question, and I'm going to roll this into a serious question for you, Jim.
Oh gosh.
Have you ever, in previous years, this year, or looking ahead to 26, 28, have you ever been mulling a run for office?
Oh man, that is a good question. I actually I do kind of get into a little bit of local politics and local causes way more than anything national, just because I don't feel like there's a whole lot that can change. Obviously, there is impressive people that go about doing that, but yeah, I think I would enjoy running for something hyper local. Maybe just for my city, or if anything, the county would be the largest probably, but something in the city would actually be pretty neat if you could affect change somehow, which seems to be easier to do on the local level.
Well, I wasn't expecting that answer. I thought you might. I thought you might answer in the affirmative, but wow, Jim, I am sorry to say you can dash those aspirations by way of your appearance on this podcast and the reputation.
It's just going to negate it if I go back and look over.
Gosh, I feel so bad that I walked you into this, and those questions are going to come up, and the flyers that you get in the mail, there's going to be the black and white picture of Jim. And do you know what he's been what he has been doing, and the people he's been talking to, and these podcasts he's been appearing on, and all this stuff he's been having discussions about the accelerator, hand dryer. What else did we talk about last time?
Yeah. Do you want a man representing you who doesn't use paper towel or only uses paper towels?
Well, Jim,
he doesn't wash his hands when he leaves the bathroom. Now, that's not true. But yes, that's absolutely how they could spin that. And they'd have a big, Ghostbuster symbol over me coming out of the bathroom, looking shocked directly into the camera, and, with dripping wet hands. And then right next to it will be a Dan Time podcast symbol with a big red Ghostbusters sign over it too. So thanks for ruining it, Dan. I appreciate it. We'll just have to, wipe this from the internet, which is easy to do, right? Everybody will tell you that. Once it's on the internet, easy to get rid of.
I think maybe the good thing is with a podcast like this one, it's still relatively obscure, and to get into the meat of things and to catch someone, you'd really have to listen for a while, because this is a long form conversation. Some of the episodes have gone an hour, 20 minutes, hour, 30 minutes, maybe a little too long sometimes, but yeah, people would have to stick around and put the time in to catch you saying something. But no, in all honesty, Jim, I asked that question because I've always thought that if the time was right and you were prepared to do something like this, you've got my full backing.
Well, thank you. Would you be my campaign manager? Would you, drop everything and come up to, Birmingham to help me run for city council?
I would be honored to do it, but I think that I might end up behaving like Mike Donnelly and doing more harm than good if you put me on stage at a microphone.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. How about the fact that like Tommy Boy and Black Sheep are basically the same movie, just with very minor tweaks?
Yeah. I really wish,
Anyways.
Talking about Chris Farley, I've read that after Tommy Boy, and I don't want to get, too serious here, but he really enjoyed that experience, some of those movie sets. And, you imagine if you're going day after day, week after week, around these same people. It's fun. You're doing what you love to do. It's maybe keeping you in check. You can't do a lot of extracurricular stuff at that time because you got to be good for your performance. And I think he talked about getting kind of down after those periods, after maybe Black Sheep and Tommy Boy, and I could see that.
Hmm.
But I just want to say, I know we're in agreement here. I miss Chris Farley every year. I don't. I couldn't
Hmm.
say every single day, every week, every month, but it's not too many months go by where I don't think, "Wow, Chris Farley was a special talent." There's never been anybody like him since, and I still miss seeing him in movies.
What about semi-annually? So twice a year.
Yeah, at least.
Okay, so say that again. I, it's Chris Farley semi-annually.
Yeah, semi-annual longing for Farley.
Yeah,
Uh,
I love
speak.
him too. I miss him. Apparently, this week would have been his 60th birthday one day this week. Just saw that earlier this week.
Wow,
But yeah, R.I.P. Chris Farley, man. He was great.
Jim. Let's just move clear across the field here. If I were to come to your house and just start rummaging through, I just start opening the junk drawer in your kitchen, and I've got some food that I brought with me, and I'm just, I need a teriyaki packet. I need some Chick-fil-A sauce. I need some Arby's sauce. What am I going to find? Am I going to find an unopened fortune cookie? What types of little packets and condiments might I find?
Oh my goodness. You hit Chick-fil-A. We love their Polynesian. So there's always a few Polynesians. There's a couple Chick-fil-A barbecues in there. I'm not a fan, nor is my wife, of the Chick-fil-A sauce, which is kind of like this daggum yum yum that they give you at all the Japanese steakhouses now. That's like a mayonnaise for dipping things in. I'm not a huge fan of
Mm.
those. Um,
By the way,
and
did you just say dad gum like Mater?
I did. I was, I know this is a family. I'm thinking about my future career in politics, so I'm trying to watch my language.
That's right.
Um,
Dad gum.
that's
I
right. That
watch
gum.
the Cars movies and the shorts. Anybody listening that's
Hmm.
got kids, go to and you if you got the Disney Plus, pull up Cars and all the shorts with McQueen and Mater. They're hilarious.
Are they
I could
good?
watch them over and over. Go ahead.
Well, you probably don't have a choice but to watch them over and over
That's
with your
right.
young kids.
Let's get back to the
uh,
condiments. I'm sorry.
oh yeah, sorry. No, excuse me. So yeah, those are definitely in there. For some reason, like, does Natalie just bring home like ketchup packets, even though you always have like the industrial sized bottle of ketchup in your refrigerator? I'm
Natalie,
like, Kelly, we will never need these ketchups that are, that eventually turn so bad that they burst on their own, and then they get all over the stuff in the junk drawer, like that single AAA battery or, a lighter that you haven't used in 15 years. So,
well, you know what those ketchup packets are for? You're supposed to have anywhere from 17 to 38 packets at any given time in your junk
mm,
drawer because you just never know when you'll have a power outage or something and you've got a sandwich that you're trying to make and but then again, what are you putting
but
ketchup
you don't
on?
put ketchup on the sandwich. Well, yeah, are you going to be making a meatloaf for 50 people when your power goes out? And so you gotta put packets of ketchup on top of meatloaf with the lights out, and then how are you going to cook the meatloaf? Hopefully, you got a gas oven,
You're,
So then you'll be happy you had the 17 to 38 ketchup packets to
Jim,
top your, because that's literally the only reason you would need those. That's it.
are you talking
And
about
we've never even made meatloaf,
and you're talking about methodically tearing the little corners off of each
hmm
individual packet.
which never happens. Never happens. The whole dadgum side of the ketchup packet rips off. It never just comes off nice and neat.
Let me ask you
So then you
this.
try to squeeze it out, and it gets on your hands. And yeah, go ahead.
When you get ready to open a packet, whatever sauce it is, do you take it
Hmm.
by, with your thumb and your finger? Do you take it at the edge and just start flapping it around before you?
You got to work all that ketchup to the opposite end of the. Of the no, I don't do. I'm not a flapper.
Mm,
I just hold one. I hold the top kind of in the center, with one hand and then use, my pointer finger and thumb on the other hand and just gently slide them down the ketchup. So pre-opening, I'm going to slide all the ketchup to the bottom of the packet. And that seems to be a much more practical way to get that ketchup down without just whapping it around. Because, you could already have grease from the burger on your hands and sling that packet, put somebody's eye out, and then you're getting sued and your family's out on the street because you don't have a house to live in, because you're whapping your ketchup packet. Things you got to think about.
Speaking of, let's just keep this on food, dining, that category. What does it sound like when you're out to eat with the family or just you and Kelly? And I know you're nice to the servers. We used to work in the industry, but your food comes out and it's just way off the mark. It's either the wrong entree or it's got the stuff on it that you asked not to be on there. What does it sound like when you're talking to that server and say, hey, excuse me, hey, Steve, or whoever it is?
Well, yeah, I mean, that first time, I'll say, Steve, hey, this, it has to be something pretty dang drastic. Like, I'm trying to think about the last time I sent something back.
Do you take the both hands and point kind of with your palms up and point at the plate and say, what is this? This isn't what I ordered.
Yeah, just, okay, so do you give that pause there? Because otherwise they'll be like, it's chicken fingers and french fries. What the heck do you think of this?
Does this
what is
look
this?
like?
And then, before any of that, I'm sitting there trying to serve, especially my wife, every time, oh, hurry up with the order, take forever, So, no, I mean, I've sent stuff. The main thing I've sent stuff back for is literally like these people that accidentally bring you the totally wrong dish,
Yeah.
I don't usually. And one time, oh man, we went, I don't know how it is down there, but up here, I think there's more Mexican restaurants per capita than anywhere else in the world. We went to this one, and I don't want to call them out because they may be one of your sponsors one day, but it was just the worst Mexican food. And I could eat Mexican up here every day of the week because there's so much variety, and they're all usually good. It's hard to find a bad Mexican restaurant. But this one I went to, the beans were ice cold. And they, I asked for corn tortillas with these tacos. They brought me flour tortillas. Another big pet peeve of mine, God, this has got to be riveting. Who's driving in a car right now just going, yeah, and, or, But speaking of Mexican, I'm real particular with my fajitas. I like my vegetables burnt almost. I do not want my fajita vegetables to come out like they've just been chopped and, lightly placed on the skillet. And, I want them to have sat there for a while and get char on them. So I have sent back fajita vegetables, and Kelly's rolled her eyes at me for doing that. But they're expensive, man. So
They are.
I like it the way I like it.
Well, I like what you say
Are you
about...
a char guy, or are you a char guy on your vegetables when you get fajitas?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't order fajitas very often, but I know what you're saying about you can always tell if you're at a good Mexican restaurant that's authentic. They know what they're doing. All you got to do is take a bite of the beans or a bite of the rice, and that'll tell you everything you need to know. When your food comes out, get a fork or spoonful of that first. Let's just say you're ordering a burrito or chimichanga or whatever. That's the test for me.
Absolutely. That's if you folks listen and take anything away from this episode, it's that. Listen to Dan right there. Try the beans and rice to know if you're in the right Mexican place.
Now, Jim, you're or have been a traveling man. You like to be on the road, or I think so. When you're out there, whether it's for work or you got the family, you're going somewhere, do you ever just spend half an hour where you say, that's it, I'm done with the music, I'm done with the podcast, I'm just going to listen to the sound of the highway outside of the window here. I'm just going to sit and think, or do you always have something kind of playing and going? I usually do.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be a psychopath to want to do that. No, I don't. I mean, I could probably do that for 12 seconds. stops before I have to put something
I feel like,
on. Unfortunately, I wish I could. I wish I could do that.
Jim, I feel like, and I'm guilty of this, but I feel like that we think we're wasting time or we're not using all of this available time if we're not plugged in, listening to something, reading something, scrolling at something. Like just the, it's a little easier to do when you're driving to just say, okay, I'm going to take about 5 minutes here and just drive. But especially if you're just sitting somewhere in public, it just kind of feels like, well, I got about 5 minutes before my table's ready, or I'm here by my dentist office. I got a few minutes before they call me. I better like check all the scores, scan through my emails, scan through my social media. Do you feel like we're mostly at that place now?
Yes, my 83-year-old father, who is hard of hearing, but that doesn't mean his brain doesn't work. He goes for these. He calls them his jaunts because he traveled as a bivocational part-time pastor. He would just on Sundays for 50 years drive to a church that usually was a long way away from where we live. So since he's retired, and now on Sundays he gets in his car by himself because he's a widower, and just drives from his apartment, in Lubbock, and just heads outside of Lubbock, Texas, and kind of just drives in a big circle, just wherever the wind takes him. And he doesn't listen to anything. He drove all the way from here to Lubbock in a rental vehicle without anything. I was like, Dad, you want to take a CD player? We could put a CD in there. Nope. So I have no idea. It's just a totally different generation, and I do find it kind of sad that I can't. And it's even harder for folks younger than us to, just sit with their thoughts or sit in silence. I mean, it's really hard for me, so I can't imagine what it's going to be like for our kids. And I'm envious of him that he's able to do that. Hopefully one day get back to something like that.
That is a
Could
long.
be that just when you turn 83, you don't give a crap anymore. You don't.
Yeah. But that is a ways to go. What Birmingham to Lubbock is how many hours? Like
About 15.
15
Yeah, so
hours.
just driving with, yeah.
No talk radio,
Mm-mm.
no music. Does he like to stop and eat at a diner or what is
He
he?
probably stopped one time and got like a bag of peanuts. He eats like a bird. I'm sure you're aware that's the key to long life is just not to eat anything because the fatter you are, the sooner you die. So, do you remember the ice storm we had up here about 10 years ago? I think you were already down in Pensacola, but
Yes, yeah, we had our version of it, and it was pretty bad, but it wasn't as bad as Birmingham and Atlanta,
yeah.
Nashville.
So him and my mom had just moved here to Birmingham, and he was out. He was down Highway 280. Their condo is right off Highway 31, and Interstate 65 right there in Vestavia, the Vestavia Hoover line. So when the ice started, he was, about 10 minutes away in normal traffic. He didn't get home for 14 hours and
Hmm.
ate candies that were in his glove box, didn't sleep, would move a little bit, but then would get stopped or another truck. But he didn't just park on the side of the road or try to walk. He kept moving the whole time, but it took him 14 hours. He said it took him as long as it did to get to Lubbock, to get to his condo here. So he didn't eat anything, and he used the bag that his candies were in to pee into.
Get out of here.
Yeah, he's a survivor, man. And that's when he was, 70, 74. So it's just a different generation. That's true. Truer words.
Now, didn't you say your dad's a big Dallas Cowboys fan?
He is. Poor
Will
dad.
will he engage in the text messages with you on the games or after the games?
A little. I don't bring it up. I bring it up when they win, but he's even more, how do you say it? He is not a super fan. He loves them and he loves reading about them, but he gets really upset when they lose. So I don't ever talk about that with him.
Mm.
When he was here visiting recently, I think it was the first Cowboys game I'd watched with him in person where they lost, and God knows how long. And he's a former preacher, like I said, kind of cussing up a storm, yelling at the top of his lungs, not top of his lungs, but just obviously upset with the performance of the Cowboys. But he's latched on. Again, I know people in their cars are just this is gripping, but he became a Chiefs fan when they drafted Mahomes because Mahomes went to Texas Tech, and you know where Texas Tech is.
Lubbock.
That's right. So because he's a Red Raider, my dad liked him, so that's given him some comfort with the total ineptitude of the Cowboys these past few years.
I always find myself amazed at your father and the stories that you share. And I think when you said that he takes these drives, at one time, maybe this was a few years ago, you said that he emails you and your siblings. How does he describe it? He shares the itinerary or the.
Yeah, it's his random thoughts, and I save every one he sends now just so I can share them with my kids, my daughter, and
It's like what
hopefully maybe. Yeah.
dear children, here's where I commuted today.
Hmm.
Wow, I mean I'm like really impressed with the way that he goes about some of these excursions. That man,
Would you like to hear one?
absolutely.
I'll give you a little breakdown. So he says, "Hello, my drive this PM was a bit unusual in that I made a mistaken assumption and ended up about 5 miles into New Mexico. That highway that runs the Texas-New Mexico border, number 769, I think, dead end south of number 114, which I had taken from Lubbock. I had forgotten that number 595 takes over at number 125. At any rate, I got turned around and went north on 595 over some actual dirt road to where it dead ends at 54. Since that was what I'd been looking for, I turned back east at that point. I might say that west of Morton, people are really even scarcer than that West Texas in general. There weren't many habitations or buildings of any kind. I stayed on 54 until I turned north on 37, somewhere around Enos. I then stayed on 37 through Amherst, Fieldton, and good old Cotton Center, all the way to 120, I-27, just south of Hale Center. There I turned south on 127 for Lubbock. He also likes to tell us about the wildlife that he saw. It was a bad day for wildlife. I didn't see any alive, but I did see two dead coyotes, one dead skunk, and a dead jackrabbit. It was sort of sad. So that's pretty much the gist of these emails that he sends. Oh, goodness.
Jim, you have quite.
People tuning in today, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, we laugh, but you've got quite a treasure of an old man. He is from a different era.
Yeah.
He doesn't, in no way is he self-conscious about his ways,
Mm-mm.
nor should he be. I just,
Mm-mm.
I love that. They,
I do
he
too.
can,
I hope to
he can
be
just
that age one day.
be at that point in his life and just break it down to this is what, I mean, all the directional information and the highways, um, it's just real matter of fact. I like
Yeah.
that. There is so much drama and nonsense in our days, and the
Hmm. Hmm.
conversations you overhear from people that are shouting at each other and yelling at each other and picking at each other, and just so much of that garbage out there that we either deal with directly or indirectly. And God bless your old man.
Amen. He's a treasure and just a very unique dude. But
I think I
they
met.
don't make them like that anymore.
No, no. Um, Jim, are you a I don't know if we'll spend a lot of time on this question. I don't even know why I advanced it here, but
Uh,
do you clear the lint screen every time on the dryer or every other time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mainly because wasn't it your apartment building where a dryer caught on fire because they didn't clean, people weren't cleaning the lint?
Yeah, I mean it's a good habit to maintain, but you really ought to get your your ducts cleaned at least. I think it should be once a year. Now I'm way behind. I'm not saying this like I'm on top of it, but it's a good practice if you know a reliable contractor in your area that does duct and vent cleaning.
Hmm.
It's money well spent.
It is. Great. Are you planning for a future sponsor right there? You're going to drop in so call, Johnson and Johnson, vent cleaning service for all your vent cleaning needs.
No, but
So yes.
I do want to shout out. This was a week 4 or 5 guest that I feel like some of those early guests are just maybe forgotten, maybe not. But Dan Dietzen, this guy was and is a very interesting fellow, someone I'm glad to call a contact. We're not close friends, but his company does leak detection, and
Oh yeah,
particularly
that's very
for
important.
high rise buildings. So if you missed that episode, I really haven't had another episode like that. But I've always welcomed anyone that's running a business, has a product, has an invention. What was that commercial with the guy with the caveman and the wheel? And it said, "Hey, if you got an idea or an invention, call one
Oh
eight hundred."
yeah,
They always come on
yeah,
late at night.
yeah. Or well, in the middle of the day when you're sitting at Firestone, that's like a Jerry Springer commercial.
But yeah, Inco Electronics. I haven't, like I said, I kind of moved on from that to really a lot of musicians. I enjoy those episodes. I hope people listening do as well. But yeah, Jim, how about also speaking about dryers? Um, if Kelly or
Let's
you,
talk more about charters. Yeah.
yeah, if you use a nice fabric softener, are you ever,
Uh-huh.
doing some laundry in the house and then you're also doing some yard work at the same time, and so you're out there around the dryer vent, and you just get that nice gain or
Mm.
or Tide fragrance. It's like, kind of like coming at you as you're cutting the grass or getting ready to.
Yeah.
Do you like
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. Yeah, I love it. And if I get the hankering, I'll cut the mower off, take my headphones off, and luckily, you got to be in the right position. But most dryer vents are, I think to be up to code, they have to be about 1.5 feet off the ground, which is just enough height to get your head under there. And I'll just lay there with the dryer vent blowing on my face and maybe get a little bit of lint here and there, but it's a really soothing, uh, soothing retreat for me from the day to day and mowing a lawn. Nobody wants to do that, so
And do you have
lay
like
there and have that
the three louvers
warm
that?
air wash over me, huh?
Do you have those three little louvers that flap as the dryer is blowing out that air?
To keep the bugs out? No, I just have the old school. I guess there's one giant round flap, in there. It's always hard for me to see when I'm under there, and usually I have my eyes closed anyway, just because it's more relaxing. But yeah, that's a good question. No, I don't have the three flaps. That seems to be a beach thing. I see those a lot at beach comments. That seems to be the way to go. Maybe it's a sand issue or something.
Jim, let's move it along here. How about, what's your favorite thing to do when it's Tuesday night, the Super Bowl's over, baseball hasn't started, you're just sitting there? What do you want to watch?
Oh gosh.
Well, I guess there's NBA. I'm forgetting a lot of stuff. I don't watch a lot of
No,
TV
you're
right now.
not. Yeah, you don't. Well, you got three kids under five, right? Or right at under five. So
Six
you
and
don't have a
under.
lot of time. And you know what? It's just, I think we might have talked about this before. There's such a glut of things that I would like to watch. It's almost like I get overwhelmed. And so I just go to YouTube and watch some of my favorite, YouTube channels. Or if I find a show that I really like and latch onto, I'll do that. But I'm not an NBA guy. I miss the NBA of the 80s and the 90s, which is, to me, was its golden era. I miss team basketball, but I do love college basketball. So if there's a college basketball game on that I'd like to watch on a Tuesday, I'll watch that. Auburn usually plays on Wednesday evening, so that takes up my Wednesdays. But man, if it's a Tuesday, that's tough. It is a little bit of a struggle because during football season you got Monday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday covered. So yeah, that's hard, man. But I
Hey,
love documentaries too, so I'll scour all the streaming services for a documentary I might not have seen yet, and
Gemma,
the
you
occasional TV show.
you mentioned. Well, I just want to ask you, going back because we're old enough, the original Dream Team, 1992
hmm
Dream Team. Who is your favorite player from that cast?
At the time, or now? Now that I look back at
Yeah, let's say then and now. And
it, well,
you can say Christian Leitner. He can
well, he'd be
absolutely
my
be in
one.
play.
He'd be my one. Yeah, he'd be my 1A. But I would say, at the time, I kind of wanted to buck the trend of being a bandwagoner or a front runner. So I loved Jordan. I thought he was awesome. But because everybody else liked Jordan, I kind of dug Clyde Drexler from the
Oh yeah,
Trailblazers,
Clyde the Glide.
who I think would have been Jordan. He had a lot of the same skills that Jordan had and brought that, above the rim and crazy athletic dunks, and especially like, driving under the basket and shooting, like, throwing layups up with your left hand. He was very much a Jordan-esque player, but he's a phenomenal player and he's on the dream team. But he just, people don't ever talk about him or remember him. But he was absolutely my favorite because I love the Trailblazers uniforms, and his name was Clyde the Glide. I mean, it was awesome. So he was my favorite back then. But as time has gone by, I just love Charles Barkley. I mean,
Hmm.
he's probably my favorite player of all time. But a lot of that's his post NBA career. I just love seeing him on inside the NBA and everything he does, and everything else besides his playing career, which is great too. I know yours was Patrick Ewing, right? Was Patrick Ewing on the Dream Team?
Absolutely. Yeah, that I still talk every once in a while about those old Knicks Bulls Eastern Conference Finals memories,
Oh, the
and
best.
the Knicks were so close,
Mm-hmm.
had their chance, but yeah, Ewing's
Yep.
my all-time favorite. Charles Barkley. If you live in Birmingham long enough, and maybe for a period of time you were out late at night sometimes, or worked in restaurants, some of us ran into him. So I got to see him a
Yeah,
long, long
yeah.
time ago. I was working at TGI Fridays. I didn't get to talk to him, but he had a large party in the restaurant. And then I did get to meet him one night at a bar late at night, and he just popped in. I mean, there was a band playing, and I won't say where it was, but I got to just shake hands with him with no autograph, no picture. And one thing I asked him, because I think at that time Patrick Ewing was still angling for an NBA head coaching job, and he had just
Yeah.
been passed over. I forget which opening it was, and so I asked Charles about that. I said, "What do you think about Ewing? You think he should have gotten that particular job?" I really don't even remember exactly how I phrased it, but I think he appreciated that I brought up his friend Patrick. But Ewing, if you look at his high school career, his college career, and he won championships at that level, and did just about all he could do for the Knicks. John Starks was fantastic. They were a great combination, and of course Oakley, and
Mm-hmm.
remember Charles Smith,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Anthony Mason. I mean, they had some good teams, but the Bulls were just unstoppable.
Yeah.
And that combination of
Pistons
Jordan and
tell you that
Pippen,
too. Mm-hmm. It just makes me think of like NBA Jam. Did you ever play that? Love that game
yep,
with the top two players from every team, and they couldn't include Pippen. It had to be Jordan and B.J. Armstrong because Pippen, or maybe it was Pippen and B.J. Armstrong, but they couldn't have Pippen and Jordan because it just wouldn't be fair to all the 31 other teams, even though one of them had Stockton and Malone and uh,
I
you know
always
uh,
I always liked whoever the big man was on most teams, or if I didn't like him, like on the Bulls there for a few years, Bill Cartwright,
oh yeah,
not the most dominating force, but he was a pretty good player.
he was. He did what needed to be done. Bill Cartwright, Luke Longley, Purdue,
Yep.
Bill Winnington. Don't forget Big Bill Winnington, the other Bill from the Bulls.
Right?
But yeah, it's just, I mean, we could sit here and name late 80s, 90s basketball players, and I could probably name you five guys that play in the NBA now. And I definitely couldn't tell you what team most of them play on. Same with baseball, man. I mean, I guess everything's romanticized when you're that age, just like music and sports. But man, I feel like the NFL's a lot better than it was back then. That might have something to do with the NFL's overwhelming popularity.
Yeah, I think the NFL. I mean, because remember in the 90s and even up till about 2000, '01, '02, you're not watching this product on flat screen TVs. It was just a
Yeah,
totally different viewing experience back then. And same with
yeah.
baseball. People love watching baseball on TV now who would never watch it, who always, I remember when I used to love, I watched the Cubs, you and I did, would watch them through the 90s. It's hard to remember what that experience exactly, if you were to sit in front of an old tube again,
Hmm.
wasn't that bad for me, but I knew what they were talking about when they said baseball's boring to watch on TV. I'd rather just be there. And some people still maintain that. But it's pretty exciting to watch it now if you're watching a high stakes game, a playoff game.
Gosh, if there's
Speaking,
one sport that I have to see in person, it's baseball. I'll watch the Cubs on TV, but that's about the only Major League Baseball I watch until the playoffs and the World Series, and even then, I don't really watch much. Baseball is just such a better in-person game. I think that's part of why its popularity nationwide has declined, is because now that we are all in front of screens, exactly like you're saying, the NFL is a better TV product, whereas Major League Baseball is a better in-person product. So, but everybody wants to be in front of their screens, you know. Nobody wants to interact
that's
with the
right.
weather. How's that for coming full circle? And and prices and stuff like that. So, I mean, baseball can still be exciting, but I think it's very much a spectator sport, and that you need to be sitting in the stands for it to be enjoyed. For me personally.
Jim, let's talk a minute here about the Gimme 10 podcast. Folks, again, that's GIMMIE, the number 10 podcast. I love the reboot. I mean, of course I do, because we're such great friends. But
Hmm.
how is this? How are you enjoying it? It was like a couple years or 18 months or so that you guys put this on the shelf.
Well, we enjoyed it, both of us, for several months, but like any relationship, unfortunately, I'd still love for people to go to listen to the episodes that are there. But we're we're retiring again. The Gimme 10 podcast. That just
Mm.
love JT. We get it has nothing to do with our relationship outside of the pod. It's just if you want to grow something, it takes a certain amount of effort, and that's not an effort that we're willing to to put into it. We'd much rather just shoot the breeze here and there. But we realized we don't need to record ourselves talking once a week. We can do that without a microphone and not have to schedule it and stuff. So it was
Well,
really fun while it lasted. I love doing it. Like I said to you, I love hearing myself talk. So I'll miss having that outlet every week. But Ever and I, my daughter, did one. We've done one episode and hope to do more. It's called Talking Stuff. I think we're about the 17th podcast called that. But if I can figure out a way to link it, I'll send it to you if you want to add it to your show notes. But yeah, me and my 10-year-old daughter have done one podcast, and we hope to do a couple more in the future about probably mostly TV, movies, stuff like that, where that we're both interested in, because we're watching Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events on Netflix right now. So we'll probably do a recap of that down the road. But yeah, as for Gimme 10, we're done again. Never say never on another episode. But yeah, you need to have JT on. He's a phenomenal guy, way more interesting than I am, and especially way more knowledgeable about music. I would love to hear you guys shoot the breeze about music for a while.
well, oh gosh, I got to say I am sad that it has come to a conclusion, probably a final conclusion here, but maybe it just makes sense. But you always have the body of work, and
Hmm.
again, I'm always happy to this maybe the last plug I put in for it, because people they'll hear me talking about Gimme 10 on previous episodes. So uh, go in and check it out.
Yes.
The I always appreciate, and I'm trying to get there. Maybe that's something I'm trying to do on this episode. You guys just let it fly. Not a lot of attention to the sound quality, especially the
Yeah.
early episodes.
Yeah.
A lot of snap, crackling, and popping.
Well, it sounded like, even though we're in the same room, like we're recording from two different ends of the house. Yeah, it was,
But
you know,
I try to make this
thank you.
a decent production, but there are times where I'm thinking, just put it out there, just publish it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Say again the name of the podcast, though, that you and Ever have.
Oh, it's just there's one episode and it's called Talking Stuff.
Talking stuff.
Tal talking, but no G. Talkin apostrophe or hyphen. What's the one in the air?
That's an apostrophe. Well, I'm really happy that there's a father daughter episode, even if it's just going to be one. I think that's really cool that you're doing that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it too. There will be more. They'll just be very sporadic. But anybody that would love for people to go listen to it, she'd be thrilled to see that somebody listened to it besides just us. So.
Jim, I always like when I see you the different threads that you're wearing, the different shirts that you got. Let me ask you this: is the Mickey Mouse shirt, the Superman shirt, Cleveland Browns? There's one. Are some of those still in rotation?
The Mickey Mouse is, yes. Superman, long gone. That was a great one though, but I way outgrew that one. I need a new Browns T-shirt. The one I had that you're talking about, just wore it. Kind of turned into tissue paper.
Mm-hmm.
The Trainwreck shirt that Kyle
Oh
Gass was a
yeah,
part of from Tenacious D. The black one, I still wear that on occasion. Got an Auburn shirt that I'm sure you've seen before. One that I wore at my bachelor party that I still wear that occasionally, but it's kind of turned into tissue paper. With age, though, and aging and the belly that comes with it, and prolific beer drinking, I've noticed that these new everybody has an Old Navy, your finer clothiers around Old Navy, Target. They have these they're like sports shirts, that so they, a cotton T-shirt. Have you ever noticed? Well, you don't notice it because you're not overweight, but like a cotton T-shirt, even if it fits you good in the chest, if you got a belly, it pokes out so it looks even bigger, like more moo-moo-like, because it doesn't then go around your belly and back in towards your waist. They just kind of hang out.
yeah,
These new athletic shirts, they kind of go around your belly, and then because the way they hang, they then go back in some.
right.
So I've noticed that a lot of those OG T-shirts, they just make me look like I'm wearing a muumuu. So big fan of your, $13.99, probably 95% polyester shirts, and they're breathable because I'm hot all the time.
Do you have the T-shirts that that hug the guns that really when you're out there, that really show off the definition and the guns there?
Oh yeah, yeah. The first thing when I bring them home is I get Kelly to cut out about an inch out of the arms, so they're just so tight around my biceps, my pythons, and then the rest that takes people's eyes away from the aforementioned belly overhanging. Oh, Dan, I love your questions. I don't know where you come up with this stuff,
Uh,
but
Jim, what's something we got to wrap this up? We're just over the hour mark, but uh, what's something around the
do we?
house?
What's your record talk? I think we should just,
Hmm.
talk about more laundry detergent talk or dryer vent.
Well, I'm sitting. I'm sitting here looking at the
My
timer,
dad.
63 minutes, and usually when I'm tipping over the hour
Woo,
mark, you know,
that's too much. Yeah.
well, no, it usually means that we've had a great discussion with this particular artist about their catalog and uh, where they're going to be performing next, and it's just like, wow, this has
Mhm.
been going pretty well. But I'm looking at the hour mark here, 63 minutes. I'm thinking we have been talking about ketchup packets and dryer vents
Dryer
and
vents.
uh,
My
your
dad's.
dad. I mean, the dad, father.
County Road 51 in West Texas.
I think that might be my initial favorite segment of this episode. Um,
Anytime you have me on, I'll read you a new. Every time that can be my segment. I'll read you where my dad's been in West Texas.
Let me ask you this: we're on the Gulf Coast here. We deal with the storms. We also deal with the tornadoes and stuff, and that's a real threat in Birmingham. And there's ice storms and stuff. When you've got inclement weather on the way, and it's looking pretty bad, and you and Kelly got to make that run down to Costco or wherever you shop, are you engaging in the panic buying, or to some extent, are you saying, "Shoot, we better get about 4 loaves here, or we need to get 2 extra cartons of this," or do you do a little bit of that, or do you just say, "Hey, let's just Take it
Yeah,
easy.
well, I mean, yeah, I make sure we have a couple frozen pizzas, maybe a loaf of bread. Always don't have to worry about ketchup on my turkey sandwiches because I got plenty of packets for that. Some ground beef if we need to make a meatloaf in case the power goes out. But no, I'm not overly concerned about any of that stuff usually. That'll probably come back to bite me one day, but
I think a good thing to do is just buy things during hurricane season down here. I just get a little bit extra of certain
yeah,
stuff, not to
that's
stockpile, but
very
just
smart.
so that when that day comes, that week comes, you can focus on other things.
Yeah, you don't
The
want to, and you especially because this is a podcast, you want to put out there that you buy, 14 bags of, 30 pack toilet paper because people will be looting your house because they'll have heard you talk about it on here. They'll be coming for you for that toilet paper.
Speaking again about the weather,
I love how you just immediately, you don't even want to keep going down that road. You just change the subject, don't
well,
you? Go
well, let
ahead.
me ask: Are you
There's
are,
not a whole lot to go in. There's no more to go on with that. Go ahead, speaking of the weather.
all right? I was going to ask: Are you a Charmin guy? Do you have? Are you a
Ooh,
double ply? What is it? Double stuffed
yeah,
Oreo?
double. Yeah. hmm
Does it matter
I
to
don't
you?
want to
Does
use
it?
Oreos for. I don't want to use Oreos for that. But yeah, I do like. It does matter. I don't want one ply.
How do you like it when you're uh, I don't know
Oh
if you've been
gosh.
to the airports or other public restrooms, and
hmm
it's just that time. Okay, you're in the stall, you're doing what you need to be doing, and you're reaching for the toilet paper. And it is the worst, uh, paper thin, just budget toilet paper. Maybe airport's not a good example, but a business, a restaurant, or something. You're thinking,
hmm
really, really,
Yeah.
this is the best we can do. I can. It's tearing off as I'm trying to pull it down the roll, and this you're
Yeah.
putting me through this.
Oh, like who makes the toilet paper dispensers that are literally a nano smidgen bigger than the toilet paper roll itself? So when you go to pull a piece, you can't even pull a whole piece because they're in there so tight.
Do you
Like who
ever?
does that? Make the dispenser a little bit larger than the toilet paper roll itself so that it rolls freely.
Fi-
Otherwise, you end up with like 60 little, 4-inch torn off squares all over the ground.
Do you ever have to tear off or begin the tear on a new roll in a public restroom,
Oh,
and you grab
oh.
like multiple layers, and then you start like
hmm
pulling a big chunk like that off?
hmm
Let's move it along. What was the?
Yeah, this is a PG podcast.
All right, the weather, Jim. I unless I absolutely have to. Well, I turn all my notifications off. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't
Oh,
take many.
okay.
I don't take many shots at people or entities. But I really just about had it with the weather business.
Whoa,
The
whoa.
they're making money off of constantly frightening people for no reason. It's
hmm
rain is coming our way. You ever go to like weather.com, and there's always it could be just a
Every
beautiful
day there's something terrible on
just
the
a
front page. Yeah,
beautiful spell in the middle of October, and they've got this ominous warning about, well, don't get too comfortable, folks. Next week we've got the system moving. Well, we always have
yeah,
a system moving in. So
yeah.
I'm done with it, and uh, if I need to read about something, then I'll pull it up that morning.
Absolutely.
Well, you get the
That's
warnings, and here's another
hmm
thing: if you live in a house with more than just yourself. Some other people have cell phones in that house, so you're going to get those severe weather, tornado warning alerts on somebody else's phone that's going to wake you up. Or uh,
yeah.
so that's my piece on that.
I'll tell you what, Dan. When I become president, I will abolish weather warnings. I'm sure that would go over well with everybody. Just for you.
Don't get me wrong. There are times where you need to have a plan in place. You've got to get to your safe spot, and terrible weather does strike. It does. I
It
think
does. You're right.
it just they wear you out with the day to day stuff.
hmm
I turn a lot of alerts off. It can be very distracting.
Yeah, I just don't allow anything to send me notifications. I don't have to worry about it.
Jim, one last question on any old music you're listening to right now.
Ooh, I've gotten into um, the band a good bit. So we love Up on Cripple Creek, Atlantic City. I'm gotten into a little bit of Warren Zevon lately. I think he's great.
Nice.
Old country. I think last time we spoke, I was telling you about how I was into Waylon Jennings, but I've listened to a little bit of Toby Keith, R.I.P. The past couple weeks.
Yeah.
Just more that he's passed. I'm not a huge fan of his overall, but some of those songs it's fun to listen to once or twice.
Well,
Um,
I will say real quick about Toby Keith. It's real easy to just put him aside. I didn't pay a lot of attention to him, say, the last 12, 15 plus years. Um,
mhm,
I don't know. I like what he was doing the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's not a political stance or anything. It wasn't substantive enough for me, but I love this bar and the beer for my horses and
mhm,
dream walking and those types of songs back then. That was fun. I was 22, 23. He actually he had a really good voice, at least back then.
mhm,
But even his image and the caricature that people who didn't like his music imagine him to be completely, oh, he's totally in this box. He really
mhm.
wasn't quite what you thought he was. You have to look at some of these performers and realize that, like, I think he wrote the lyrics of the courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue, supposedly on a beverage napkin, and it was after 9/11, and he was red hot about it, and a lot of us had pretty strong feelings, and so that takes off, and that kind of changes his brand. And so, what do you do
Yeah.
when you're holding on to that rocket and up you go? Why would you're just going to double down on that? So
Mhm.
that's how he made his money, and that's the way I look at it. But
Well, and I didn't even really think about that. Should have been a cowboy was from '93. I
yeah,
just always kind of I forget about that song and that it was him, and
and
it popped up on my Spotify.
he wrote those lyrics too. A lot of those artists,
Hmm.
country artists, they sing them. I mean, Jason Aldean. I don't know if he writes. He might write some of his music, but yeah, Toby Keith wrote a lot of the lyrics.
Yeah, and I just you don't realize that his career didn't start with 9/11. He was, making hit songs 10 plus years before that almost. So
Yeah.
yeah, R.I.P. to him. That was terrible. So, but that's mostly what I've been listening to. I don't have a real, I mean, playlist is pretty eclectic, but I haven't listened to much news since we spoke, except for maybe that Warren Zevon stuff a little bit. I've gotten into him some.
Well, I was hoping you might maybe sing us out with a.
Oh, I should have been a cowboy. Should have learned to rope and ride. That's not really singing though. That's like me imitating him singing. So
I don't think
how's
you.
that? Is that gonna have to get cut too?
What I don't think you give yourself enough credit. I think you need to get. I think you need to find someone to record you.
Okay. Oh well. Hey.
Get some studio time booked.
Okay. I'll do it. Maybe next time you come up, bring your fancy podcast equipment. We'll make it that way. Send out some demo tapes.
Well,
Dan, this has been great. Thank you for having me, buddy.
thanks for being here, Jim. Anything else you want to promote, plug, or state?
Oh man, that's a great question.
Hey, I'm looking at my notes here. Some of the questions I was planning to ask. I
Ooh.
wish I had a picture of it, and they're all bullet pointed.
Mm-hmm. Bullet pointed. Yeah,
I
bullet
just
pointed.
scribbled them out. One of them just says, "Would you?" And then I didn't finish the thought. Would you?
Everybody show up? Would you? Could you?
So I guess that's
Absolutely.
my last question of the day is, Jim, would you?
Dan,
You would, wouldn't you?
absolutely. Absolutely.
I knew you would.
No hesitation. You know
All right.
Okay.
Well, remember, folks, if it's if it's getting to be that time where things are getting a little dusty around the house, you hadn't cranked that lawnmower all winter, you need to do it at least once. Get out there and crank it up. Make sure it still runs properly because the spring and summer will be here before you know it. Check those vents.
Check those vents. Yeah, that's important. Fire hazard. Check those vents. Get out there.
if you hadn't had a good bug man come out to your house and spray or maybe lay out some stations for termites, you really need to consider that. If you haven't gotten your car washed in a while, it's about time. When it's time to get that thing vacuumed, cleaned inside and out. If it's time to take your wife out to dinner or your husband or your partner, do it. If it's, it may be time. Those brakes, don't ignore that squealing sound. You're backing out of the driveway.
No.
You're going to work every morning. Something's happening, and just like an illness, maybe you don't want to find out what's going on. But when it comes to your vehicle, take your vehicle down to the good folks there at ABC Automotive. They'll take care of you, and tell them Jim sent you.
That's right. AB, see you later.
Jim, 5 months.
Yes, buddy.
5 months have passed. Who knows if we'll wait another 5 months? I want to get you to the five timer club as quickly as I can. And I don't know who's next. Let's see. Who have we had here twice? Dan Kabelka has returned. And, oh, my gosh, I'm going to forget someone who's going to get their feelings hurt. I think that's it.
Well, the main thing is that I've been on the most. So, in your face, everybody else named Dan. Jim is number one on this podcast.
All right. Well,
how about that?
That's right. Always number one.
That's right.
Folks, I hope you've enjoyed it. Very unconventional Dan Time episode. You don't get these all the time. We're back to business next week. We're going to straighten up and tidy up and clean up our act. No more toilet paper, condiment packet talk. So enjoy it while it lasted, because we're coming to a close here. Jim, have a great rest of the night. What are you having for dinner later tonight?
I think I'm gonna have meatloaf after all this talk about it. So, meatloaf, yep.
Can't go wrong there. Well, I don't say this very often, and I should have put this in there with all the maintenance instructions and advice. Jim, I love you, man.
I love you too, Dan.
Don't forget, folks. Tell somebody that you love them.
That's right.
That could be a friend. That could be a child. That could be your spouse. That could be someone.
Oh my gosh, Dan! They've been playing you off here. If this was the Oscars for the past 5 minutes, wrap it up, man.
Hurry up.
How many outros do you have? And bye, everybody.
And remember, we'll see you next week on the Dan Time Podcast. Thank you, Jim. Have a great night. Hey, if you love that episode, tell a friend about it. I always appreciate you downloading and subscribing to the show. That way, you catch every weekly episode as soon as it's released. And if you hear a guest on this show and think, man, I wish Dan would have more people like that on this podcast, send me a note. Ask and you shall receive. dantimepod@gmail.com, @dantimepod across the socials. Tell me what you like, what you don't like, or if you would like to appear on the podcast. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday.